Hello and welcome to this video where we will present, explain and try to answer from a broader perspective based on our perception as a team one of the main discussed issues of the human society. Does the absolute justice exist? This question might sound easy at first, but who defines what is fair and what is not? Where is something fair or unfair? Throughout the story, justice has been not only one of the society's pillars, but also one of the humanity's big dilemmas, where always has been this debate between what is right and what is wrong. And according to the most academic and philosopher's thoughts, it is not possible to state a unique set of standards of how to be justice person every context of our lives. Justice is a complicated term to define. However, it continues to be highly used today in everyone's conversations, arguing from a personal concept based on one's self-perception. And there is where the relevance of this question begins. Based on a personal opinion, justice is what you see for the good of the majority, and that generates the responsibility of each action performed by each person. For this reason, the whole team agreed that the absolute justice could be considered as a false ideal since the human being is a reader entity which bases its attitudes and opinions on each different values and beliefs. So, so it can be established that the world ruled by the same judgment and rules in an imaginary utopia without any possibilities to achieve. Summarizing these arguments, we can conclude that the absolute justice is a non-existent idea as justice depends on how each person sees and interprets each situation as fair or not. So, justice can be defined as a relative topic.
To build an stated essence, the team made use of the justice theories, doctrines, and researches of three of the most outstanding academics and thinkers of humanity: Plato, Machiavelli, and Rawls. However, ironically, it was Machiavelli's thoughts that gave us better guidance and background to develop an adequate answer to our central question: does absolute justice exist? And who better than the pragmatic and honest author of The Prince to answer this question? Niccolo Machiavelli was an Italian Florentine Renaissance diplomat, philosopher, and writer from the 15th century. Author of the masterpieces The Prince, the Florentine Histories, and the Discourses, Machiavelli left the world an unusual approach to an immoral and ethical notion of politics. However, we will not enter into details in his political beliefs. Instead, we will expose how the base idea of his theory represents the same most people think about our main question. Despite the numerous critiques he has received in the last 500 years, we must remember Machiavelli was the first thinker to decisively separate politics from human or civic ethics. By this, he argued that you could not make use of the same ethics, morals, and interpretation of the laws in every situation you face. In the chapter 18 of The Prince, Machiavelli explains the core of this new moral philosophy. And he says, it is essential to realize this, that a prince cannot practice all those things for which men are considered good, being often forced, in order to keep his position, to act contrary to truth, contrary to charity, contrary to humanity, contrary to religion. Therefore, he must have a mind ready to turn in any direction as fortune's winds and the variability of affairs require. He holds to what is right when he can, but knows how to do wrong when he must. In general terms, Machiavelli also shared this moralistic view in another of his thoughts. He wrote that to succeed in some of the fields we choose to follow, like business, politics, or any other profession, we must recognize and accept that there will be conflicts within our moral codes which may require a different vision of justice for effectiveness. To formulate our final argument, we had to cover both sides of the discussion. On the one hand, we analyzed and adapted Machiavelli's idea on justice to make more robust and coherent our argument. On the other one, we took into consideration one of the best representative of the absolute justice concept to acquire a better understanding. I'm talking about the great moral philosopher Immanuel Kant. To his three most celebrated exceptional treatises on human behavior, the Critique of Pure Reason, the Critique of Practical Reason, and the Critique of the Power of Judgment, this 18th century German scholar and philosopher is still considered until the present day as the one who gave the world a better perception and comprehension of ethics, moral philosophy, metaphysics, and aesthetics. But we will focus only on his moral and ethical theory. inside his work, Kant divided people into two ethical groups. The autonomous ones that act to achieve common goods, called categorical imperative, and the heteronomous ones that act to reach their self-interests, called hypothetical imperative. Kant stated that only through the categorical imperative it is possible to build a universal set of ethics to establish a globalized society under the same rules. Kant himself put it in his book The Critique of the Practical Reason, act only according to that maxim by which you can at the same time will that it should become a universal law. Machiavelli and many other thinkers, Immanuel Kant advanced further, applying his theory of the categorical imperative to the political context under his formula of the universal law, where everybody lived together under the same jurisdiction. Kant fulfilled this complementary idea in his book The Metaphysics of Moral, which can be summarized as: since the Earth's surface is not unlimited but closed, the concept of a right of a state and of a right of nations leads inevitably to the idea of a right for all nations, or cosmopolitan right. So here the question is, who of both is right? As a team, we consider it is hypocritical to dismiss Niccolo Machiavelli's justice ideas, since he is in fact suggesting a practical or realistic application of justice in every context of society. Immanuel Kant seems to have written, as we said at the beginning, about an imaginary utopia full of ideals which are universally unreachable for human behavior. Possibly the best proof of Machiavelli's theory of effectiveness is its presence in the French Revolutionary period. Jean-Jacques Rousseau, one of the French leading revolutionary philosophers of the 18th century, supported Machiavelli's thought that there are some times when you must judge from a different angle to reach a common goal.
To reach justice is almost impossible because human beings are selfish by nature. To be entirely fair means that some people will lose some privilege, while other people will obtain it. However, no one wants to lose or change their status if it's good. Furthermore, our perception of justice is almost every time blinded by our interests. In consequence, the ones that have a benefit will believe that justice exists, while the people who lose will genuinely believe that justice doesn't exist. To be near to the justice means that we need to stop thinking just in ourselves and our benefits, and to consider in what is fair or not, even if the consequences don't benefit use or even affect use. Also, in a political context, the concept of justice is not clear because there is no general concept or ideal of justice, causing that every country generates their own vision. Therefore, to create a general concept of justice that not only applies to use our country but globally is a complex goal that in our world doesn't exist.